In the summer of 2010, deep inside a Siberian cave known as Denisova Cave, archaeologists uncovered something so small it could have been dismissed as meaningless, a fragment of bone, no larger than a fingernail. At first, it looked unremarkable, just another broken piece in a cave already famous for Ice Age remains. But this fragment did not belong to any known human ancestor. Not Neanderthal, not modern human, not anything scientists had ever seen before. When the sample was sent to the ancient DNA labs at the Max Planck Institute for Evolutionary Anthropology, researchers expected routine results. Instead, geneticist Svante Pääbo and his team uncovered a completely unknown branch of humanity, a ghost population, an entire group of humans who left almost no trace in stone tools, art, or skeletons, yet whose DNA told a story of survival, migration, and interbreeding across continents. They named them the Denisovans. And with that single genetic revelation, the story of human evolution, once thought to be a simple tree, became something far stranger, a tangled web. Because this wasn't just a new species, it was proof that the past was far more complex than we imagined, that multiple human groups didn't simply replace each other. They overlapped, they interacted, they mixed, and some disappeared without leaving fossils, only genetic echoes hidden inside us. Until recently, history was written with bones and tools. Now, it's written with molecules. Ancient DNA is revealing invisible civilizations of humanity, populations that left no monuments, no art, no myths, only genetic fingerprints buried inside our cells. And this discovery in Siberia was only the beginning. Across the world, from caves in Europe to deserts in Africa, ancient DNA and new archaeological breakthroughs are quietly dismantling the timeline we thought we understood. Human history is no longer a straight line. It's becoming a mystery again. And the deeper scientists dig into the ground and into the genome, the more unsettling the truth becomes. We are not the sole survivors of a simple story. We are the last chapter of a crowded one. And some of those lost chapters are only now being read for the first time. In 2018, researchers returned to remains from Denisova Cave expecting incremental insight. Instead, they found something unprecedented. A tiny fragment of bone, again no larger than a fingernail, carried DNA that told an impossible story. When scientists sequenced it, they realized this individual had a Neanderthal mother and a Denisovan father, a first-generation hybrid, not a distant descendant of mixed populations, not the result of blending over thousands of years, but the direct child of two entirely different human groups. For decades, textbooks described Neanderthals and other archaic humans as evolutionary dead ends, side branches that disappeared as modern humans spread across the globe. But this discovery proved something radically different. These groups weren't isolated. They weren't strangers. They met. They lived near one another. They formed relationships. They had children. Human evolution was not a clean succession of species replacing one another. It was interaction, interbreeding, overlap, and coexistence. The hybrid girl, often nicknamed Denny by researchers, lived roughly 90,000 years ago. Her existence forces a new interpretation of prehistoric landscapes, not as territories belonging to single species, but as shared worlds where different types of humans crossed paths and crossed boundaries. The implications were staggering, because if Neanderthals and Denisovans were mixing directly, then the ancient world wasn't divided into separate evolutionary lanes. It was a network, populations moving in and out, meeting, separating.
Ancient DNA revealed that this wasn't an isolated event. Neanderthals themselves carried Denisovan ancestry from earlier encounters. Denisovans carried traces of Neanderthals, and modern humans, today, carry fragments of both. The past wasn't about extinction alone. It was about exchange. Genes flowed across groups like rivers through shifting landscapes, and what survived was not just one lineage, but pieces of many. The hybrid child was not a historical anomaly. She was evidence of a prehistoric reality that had never been imagined. one where humanity was never singular, but plural. And that realization would soon be reinforced thousands of miles away, in a place where scientists were about to discover something even more unsettling. Not a new human species, but a hidden migration that reshaped the origins of civilization itself. For generations, Africa was seen as the birthplace of modern humans, the place where our species emerged and then spread outward into the world. But recent discoveries are revealing that even within Africa, the story was never simple. In 2017, genetic research on ancient remains from sites like Shumlaka began to reveal something unexpected. The individuals buried there, dating back around 8,000 years, were not direct ancestors of most living Africans today. Instead, their DNA pointed to a population that had largely vanished, a ghost lineage, a group that lived, thrived, and then disappeared, leaving behind only faint genetic traces. This was startling because it suggested that Africa itself had once been home to multiple deeply distinct human populations living side by side, some mixing, some remaining separate, some leaving descendants, others fading entirely. Ancient DNA from across the continent began telling the same story. Populations we had never known existed were emerging from genetic analysis alone. These ancient African populations had shaped the human landscape long before recorded history, contributing to the genetic diversity of modern populations in ways that archaeology alone could never reveal. Even more surprising was evidence that some of these ancient African populations had interbred with unknown archaic humans, groups that were neither Neanderthals nor Denisovans. We don't yet have their fossils, we don't know their names, but we know they existed because their DNA survives, hidden within modern genomes. These unknown ancestors may have lived tens of thousands of years ago, contributing genetic adaptations that helped humans survive disease, climate shifts, and environmental challenges. Some of these inherited genes influence immunity today. Others affect metabolism, and some may shape how populations respond to certain pathogens. What this means is profound. Africa was not a single homeland. It was a mosaic, a shifting landscape of populations meeting, diverging, merging, and disappearing over tens of thousands of years. The origin of humanity was not the single emergence from one group, but the result of interaction between many. Ancient DNA is showing that our species was forged not in isolation, but in contact. And this complex beginning would echo far beyond Africa, because when humans began to move across continents, they didn't enter empty lands. They entered worlds already inhabited by others. And sometimes they didn't just replace them, they became part of them. For most of modern science, human history was told as a story of progress, a steady rise, one species replacing another, a march from primitive to modern. But ancient DNA has rewritten that narrative. Again and again, new discoveries are revealing that our past was never a straight ascent. It was an entanglement. Across Europe, Asia, and Africa, genetic evidence now shows that humans did not simply spread and dominate. They met others, they exchanged ideas, tools, and genes, and sometimes they became part of them. Fragments of Denisovan DNA still shape how populations in Southeast Asia adapt to altitude. Neanderthal genes influence immune responses in people today. Unknown African ancestors contributed traits that helped populations survive ancient diseases. These are not relics of extinction. They are living inheritances. Our bodies are archives. Each genome is a record of encounters that archaeology alone could never fully document. Encounters without monuments, without written language, without memory. Ancient DNA has exposed ghost populations, groups that left no tools distinct enough to identify, no skeletons complete enough to classify, yet they shaped the trajectory of humanity, and they survive inside us. This realization has transformed how scientists view evolution. not longer as a tree with clean branches, but as a braided river, streams of humanity merging and separating over time. The idea of a single pure lineage has collapsed. In its place stands a deeper truth. We are composites, not the end of evolution, but the continuation of many pasts. And as sequencing technology advances, more hidden histories are likely to emerge, buried in caves, preserved in sediment, encoded in ancient teeth and bones, or waiting silently inside living DNA. Each new discovery forces us to confront a humbling possibility that the story of humanity is far from complete, that entire chapters have yet to be uncovered, and that what we call our history may be less about who we replaced and more about who we absorbed. The past is not gone, it is alive, in us.